And we are live on another edition of the K&K Sports Show. Boys, our last show in November of 2023. One more month to go. Full pack show. I want to give a shout out to everybody. Hope everyone had a great, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you again for the birthday, everybody for the birthday wishes. But that's in the past. We got a lot of presents. Let's get right to opening statement. Mr. Kirkpatrick, good evening, fellas. Have a great show. Love you guys. Mr. Kirkpatrick, unfortunately, has to work tonight, but he will be with us throughout the show. My opening statement is this. What a heartbreaking defeat on Saturday for my Auburn Tigers. They were right there. Shout out to Alabama, but they're going to listen. They're going to have major problems on Saturday. But what an effort. Should have never lost that game, but I'm very happy with that. And hey, let's go. 5 in a row. Hottest team in the NFL. Let's go. I'm excited about it. Carson Shear, opening statement.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Hopefully you guys all had a good, happy Thanksgiving. Everything was good for me except the Lions, but that's all right. We got the Saints this weekend. Pistons, man, they're on a 14-game losing streak, about to be 15. They're down like 20 to the Lakers right now, so that's nice. But yeah, having a good show tonight, and let's go.
Another comment from Kenny saying, Kurt, thank you to you and Jen for hosting, and great finally meeting Paul and Luby. Absolutely, Kenny. Very great. Again, I want to give Jen all the props. I mean, honestly, she did all the work for Thanksgiving. I mean, we didn't do anything, but it was really nice having Kenny down for Thanksgiving throughout the whole weekend. And Paul, I'll come to you because I know you got a chance to finally meet Kenny.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, finally, after almost 2.5 years, face to face, Kenny met myself and my wonderful wife, Luby, and it was wonderful. We had an opportunity to sit and talk, and it was just a great day. And we appreciated Kenny coming down and sort of met halfway up, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you.
And last but not least, of course, Mr. Scoops himself, Ryan Scoop Williams. What's up, Scoops?
Good evening, yo. I don't know, hottest team in the NFL. There's another team that's won 5 in a row that actually beat the Super Bowl champs, so I'm not sure about that one. But guys, just real quick.
Actually, I don't know. Did you? I don't. I think we got the longest win streak in the NFL. If I'm not,
we're tied, man.
Okay.
No, just real quick. Just want to thank two athletes. Luis Severino just signed a deal with the Mets. Thank you, Luis, for your 8 years in New York. It ended rather unceremoniously, but hope he's doing well. Hope he'll do well in Queens. And same for Deshaun Jackson, who's going to retire an Eagle this weekend. Can't wait to see him. Thanks for all the great memories, including, yes, Paul, I'm going to say it.
No, don't say it. Don't say it, please.
So,
Which actually happened to be Luby's first football game she ever saw. I'm serious.
But
yeah.
Also just thanks to the two of them for some great memories as a childhood sports fan.
And there's our good friend Jody Moncrief saying both at 5. So I apologize for that, Scoops. All right, Mr. Rosen, I know you and Kenny, I want to give you guys a shout out. You guys do a great job with the agenda. So I know you're going to run it tonight. Eddie, real quick, Eddie Murphy says all in on high school sports. Is this your regular Wednesday show? I don't know why it says all in. Maybe I screwed something up. It's possible.
I find that hard to believe, but
no, listen, what I say, guys, we haven't done a show in a week. I feel like I'm lost. Mr. Rosen, I know that you and Mr. Kirkpatrick worked very hard on
yes, sir.
On the agenda, so I know I will let you take over and go from there.
Thank you. All right. We have a great action-packed show, college football and NFL today. So I'm going to kick it off back to Kurt, and I know he has a very interesting college football opening segment for us. So all balls in your hands, Kurt.
All right, let's. Here we go. Kenny. Only one difference. Kurt praises his team each week. Scoops complains every week about Eagles. Shake my head. LOL. All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into a bunch of scenarios. I think this is a fascinating weekend coming up where it's not like, okay, these teams are set. I don't think anybody's locked into a college football playoff, which I think is awesome. But let's do this real quick. I'll start with Carson. Going into this weekend, give me your top 4 and your next 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with the committee on this one. I got Georgia 1, I still think Michigan still right there at number 2. I'm going to put Washington 3 as well. And then right now, I'm going to put Oregon at 4 above Florida State. And then I have Florida State 5 and then Ohio State 6.
All right, I'm a little different. I'm going to go Georgia, Michigan, Washington, 1, 2, 3. 4, I am going to put Florida State right now. They are still undefeated. I'm going to go Oregon 5. Again, they have their shot with Washington. And 6, I'm going to put Texas. I still hold that, that winning at Bama is very hard to do. So I'm going to keep them there right now. Scoops, give me your top 4 and your next 2 as of going into this weekend.
Yeah, so top 3 got Georgia, Michigan, Washington. Number 4, I'll go Oregon just because I trust their quarterback the most. And the next 2, I agree with you about Texas winning. Against us is that was a big win for them. And number 6, after this weekend, yeah, I'm going Roll Tide on number 6.
Paul.
Basically the same. Georgia, Michigan, Washington. I still have the undefeated Seminoles, number 4, but I'll go Oregon 5, and I'll still put Ohio State there 6 because they did lose a tough, close game to the number 2 team.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Hope you guys have pens and paper. Oh, wait, Kenny, Georgia, Michigan, Washington, FSU, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State. He had to be different and give us 7 teams, but hey, that's Kenny. All right, so I'm going to read you guys off scenarios. And all I want is, if this happens in these games, who would you pick as your 4? All right, so I'm going to start it. I'll go first. I'm going to go me, Carson, Scoops, and Paul. Okay? So here we go. All right. Scenario number 1. Washington beats Oregon. Texas beats Oklahoma State. Georgia beats Alabama. Michigan beats Iowa. Florida State beats Louisville. Basically, all the undefeated teams win. Who's in? I'm going to go Georgia, Michigan, Washington. And my last one is I have to take Florida State over Texas. Carson, with that scenario, who are you taking?
I'm going to do the same thing and give me the best 4 teams. Florida State without their quarterback, I don't think they're one of the best 4 teams. I mean, like you said, Kurt, I think Texas at Bama, Quinn Ewers is back. Head to head, I think Texas beats Florida State. So I would put Texas over Florida State. A lot of people are going to be upset about that. I think Florida State should get in, but Kirk Herbstreit said it last night. Are they one of the best 4 teams in the sport? And that's what the committee's job is. I think Texas would get in.
Scoops, in that scenario, who do you got?
I got the same 4 as Carson. My 4th team in rather would be Texas in that scenario because again with the Ewers factor.
Kenny's saying same as me. I guess he's taking Florida State, but he's saying, but if Texas blows out Oklahoma State, I'm thinking about putting Texas in. Paul.
I'm going with the undefeated teams. I mean, you can't take away a whole season undefeated by Florida State. They've proved that if they go undefeated, they cannot go out. I think the committee is setting a precedent. In fact, they moved them back up to 4th in the rankings this week. So to me, if everyone stays undefeated, you got to pick the 4 undefeated teams.
All right, next scenario. All the quote-unquote favorites this week win. So Oregon beats Washington. Texas beats Oklahoma State. Georgia beats Alabama. Michigan beats Iowa. Florida State beats Louisville. My group out of that, again, I'm going Georgia. I'm going Michigan. I have to put Florida State in now because there's a bunch. They're only one of now 3 undefeated teams. And then it's basically going to be between Oregon, Texas. Again, this is hard, man. I'm going to go Oregon. So I would go Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Oregon. Carson.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Kurt, as well. I think Washington falls out. I think, again, that's going to take care of itself. So Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and then, Florida State, they beat Louisville. they're the last undefeated team left. So I think, yeah, I would put Florida State in there.
Clams was going back to the last one, and he's saying my top 4 is what you do. He's saying if Florida State wins, they have to be in. Scoops, with this scenario now, Oregon beats Washington. Everything else is the same.
Excuse me. Yeah, I do think that would push Oregon up up into the top fold. I think that's a close enough positioning right now where again, because I said I like their quarterback situation, I would put Oregon up above them at that point.
And really quick, I think it all depends on what Florida State does against Louisville. If they barely win, I don't know if they're safe. If they lose, I think they're out. But if they barely get by Louisville and like Texas clobbers Oklahoma State, you got to consider Texas, especially if it's like, you know, they came from behind. I don't know that Florida State, they have to win by at least, I think, 10 points to comfortably be in. If they barely get by, I don't know they're safe.
Mark Calderio, good evening, gentlemen. Let's go Michigan.
Hey, Mark.
What's up, Mark? Kenny in this situation is saying Oregon gets in, Texas falls short. Jody's saying Texas over Oregon. Paul.
Yeah, I'd go Georgia, Michigan, Florida State if they win, but I like Carson's point about how close that score might be. I will say I've read that Texas's win in Tuscaloosa might be the best win this season in college football. But I think if Oregon beats Washington, you're talking about the number 3 team losing to the 5 team or so. I think you got to put Oregon in because they are ahead of Texas. So my 4 again would be Oregon, Florida State, of course, Georgia and Michigan.
Carson, I'm going to give this one to you. Agree or disagree with Joey Clams? If Florida State wins and they don't get in, you cannot call it a playoff. It's an invitational then.
Yes and no. I'm with Joey. The right thing should be if Florida State wins, they're undefeated. How can you drop them back from 4? They're already locked in at 4. How do you take them to 5 when they just won their conference championship? So I agree with Joey, but again, it's going to depend on the score. If Florida State barely gets by Louisville and a team like Texas dominates Oklahoma State, I think you have to take that into consideration. But yes, I would agree with that. I think it becomes an invitation popularity contest versus who's the best 4. I agree with Joey.
All right, here's another one. I'm not going to read all these because I could be here forever. I'm going to do 2 more, but I'm going to do, again, another realistic one. I mean, I think a lot of these are realistic, but Washington beats Oregon. Texas beats Oklahoma State. Michigan beats Iowa. Florida State beats Louisville. Alabama beats Georgia. Who are your 4 in? I'm going to go Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. I mean, again, they're 13-0. They're all conference champions. And I don't believe I'm saying this, but how in the world can you take Alabama over Texas? I mean, I think Alabama is probably the better team. I think Alabama's in the best conference in football, but I mean, head to head in your building, Texas won. So I'm taking Texas. Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Texas. Carson.
And this is the scenario that could possibly piss off a ton of people. What is the committee going to do if Bama beats Georgia? Bama beats the undefeated Georgia team that hasn't lost in 3 years. That's the most impressive win out of any of these teams. I think Bama takes a big jump, and I think they get in the playoff. I would put them at 4. And does Georgia fall out of the top 4? I don't know, but that's going to be the one scenario that's going to be a big, big variable, because if Ryan's Bama team beats that Georgia team who hasn't lost in 3 years, how do you leave them out of the playoff?
It's crazy. Couple comments. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Real quick, couple comments. Anthony Mataloni. Arch Manning looked comfortable with them horns. Yes, he did. He did get his first official time. Are you putting... Oh, so Jody's saying, are you putting Florida State in or Jordan Travis in?
Right. That's a great, that's what it comes down to. Exactly it, Jody.
And now
going back to what you said, Kurt, I would be similar to what you said. I would say Michigan, You said Oregon won or Washington?
No,
won?
Washington won.
Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and then Bama beats Georgia. I'm putting Bama in.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because it's like, I totally agree with you. The only team I think that could be like, whoa, I think is Texas. Like we beat that team on the road. It's fascinating.
It's going to get really interesting. Yeah.
Scoops, Kenny is saying Alabama has no business playing Chattanooga late in the season. It should hurt their resume. Agree or disagree with him, Scoops?
Both, because I agree that we have no business playing Chattanooga, but I don't. But people always say you play the teams that you play. Like if we beat, like Carson just said, thank you for talking sense, Carson. If we beat the guys that haven't lost a game since I was, I think, a sophomore in college, then I don't see how a team that or losing a game, to Texas earlier in the season, I don't think that should, I think that there's a weight difference there.
So Scoops, in that scenario, give me your 4. You're putting Alabama in then, obviously? You're going the regular. Okay. Paul, I'm sorry. I know I cut you off. I apologize.
No. So who are your 4, Scoops?
Yeah. So then it would, excuse me. So it would be Georgia. It would be, Oregon. It would be.
No, wait. Scoops,
no.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me just read the scenario one more time. I confused you, I think.
Yeah, you did. I'm sorry. I just didn't.
Yeah, in this scenario, I had Washington beating Oregon, so Washington's undefeated.
Yeah.
I had Michigan beats Iowa, so Michigan's undefeated. Florida State beats Louisville, so Florida State's undefeated. Texas beats Oklahoma State, and Alabama beats Georgia. So you have 3 undefeated teams.
Yeah,
and really you have Alabama, Texas, and Georgia at 12-1.
Yeah, my apologies. You're hard to keep up with sometimes, but I would probably put. I think I might. I would still go Georgia 1. I think, although you'd have an argument to drop them down. I would put Michigan at 2 at that point. I think I would put Florida State 3, and I think I would put Bama 4.
But how could you do that? Washington is undefeated, and Texas beat Alabama. How could Alabama go ahead of Texas and an undefeated Washington team, though?
Because I don't think that there's a excuse me. You can't understate or overstate. I don't know what the correct one is, but the effect of beating a team that they're right out on the outside looking in now. So now you jump up. You have to jump up at least a couple spots, beating a team that no one's been able to beat in 3 years. So
they won't. The committee doesn't look at that. They've said it doesn't. It's irrelevant. As crazy as it sounds, that. What happens only this year? They don't care about the last 2 years. I understand where you're coming from. That they have a 29-game winning streak.
This is personally what I would do. But
Paul, ahead, real quick, and this is crazy because I don't agree with Scoops a lot, but I agree with him on one thing. And Carson and Paul, you guys tell me if I'm. See, this is why I really think. Yeah. Is it most deserving or best teams? Because I agree with Scoops. If Alabama beats Georgia, I'm saying right now, they're 2 of the best 4 teams in the country. They are. And I think Michigan is. And I'm going to be honest. I don't know if Washington, I'm sorry. Florida State's more deserving than Georgia or Alabama. But if you're going to tell me the best 4 teams, I'm taking Alabama and Georgia if they win that game.
Okay, so let me just make one more point. Is it for the best ratings on the playoffs, or is it the best teams? Because if it's the best ratings, yeah, they certainly want Georgia and Alabama in there, as opposed to maybe Florida State without their best quarterback and maybe a Pacific 12 team.
I would argue, because I'm looking at the best games, so I would argue it's a combination of the two, because you obviously have to have, among the best teams to have the best games. But I think if they are looking at it from that standpoint as well, it was either last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember when, but one of the semifinals games was not even, it was not even super competitive. I think
That
It
was
probably
the Cincinnati. That was the
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
yeah,
That
the
was
Bearcats.
that was before he became a member of this show.
Florida State's going to get screwed.
Just-
And if you look at the spread right now, Florida State versus Louisville, why is Florida State only a 2.5-point favorite? If Jordan Travis is playing in that game, that spread is probably 9.5, 10.5 towards Florida State. So,
Well, let me ask you this.
Are you gonna put the best 4 teams who you think, like Ryan said, the best matchups? Because nobody wants a blowout like 62-7 last year in the national championship. They want the gauntlet of the gauntlet. And I don't know head to head right now that if it's Florida State or Texas, I'm probably taking Texas. If it's Alabama, Florida State, I'm probably taking Bama right here.
Well,
right
let me
now.
ask you
I
this,
don't know if
Carson.
Florida
You're our
State-
wits and wagers guy. You're the guy that does Carson. You're in clams, right? So right now, Florida State, Alabama on a neutral field. Who's the favorite?
Bama's winning.
Okay,
100%.
Georgia, Florida State. I'm sorry, Georgia, Texas. Who's the favorite?
Probably Georgia.
So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is where if you're really going to say the best, if the spreads and that's not going to matter, then do you have, like if you're saying Bama's a 9-point favorite over, like if you tell me it's the most deserving, yeah, Florida State deserves it off of out. They do. But if you're going to tell me the best team, but they're a 9-point underdog, I don't agree with that. I don't.
Florida State's going to get screwed. You'll see it Sunday. They're going to get screwed big time.
What's yours?
Yeah, I mean, if Georgia loses, they're going to be fourth. Michigan will be first. Washington will be second, and Florida State will be third because there'll be 3 undefeated teams. I still think Florida State has to get in as an undefeated 13-0 team and winning their conference.
Florida State is rooting for Georgia,
right?
Wins,
of course.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, how do you leave Georgia out too? If it's a shootout,
right?
That's put
why
Georgia and Bama both in.
Maybe, that's where I was at. When I was trying to do the rankings with that scenario that Kurt just threw at me, I'm like, what do you do with them when they're such a great team, but then they just take their do you how far do you drop them down? Because you can make probably just as convincing of a case to drop them down just to 2 as you can to drop them out entirely.
Scoops, the crazy thing is they can still lose to Alabama, and they're probably still going to be the favorite to win the national title. Like that's the craziest thing.
Well, that's part of that was part of where I factored in.
Hey, Kurt, we can have a whole hour of this, but
I'm gonna wrap.
We better move on.
Scenarios. Let me just read comments real quick. Kenny saying keyword late season, play them in September. I don't care, but not this late. Kenny saying Bama is out. Sorry, Scoop insists. He's saying Texas is in. What's more important? I'll ask Carson real quick. A big win or a bad loss?
A big win.
Kenny's saying if Bama beats Georgia, good for them. But in this scenario, SEC is out. Stephen Waldman is checking in, saying what's going on. Mark is saying, what about Ohio State? They beat Penn State and Notre Dame, but they lost to Michigan. Any chance Carson, Ohio State, or they're done?
They need a lot to happen. They need Texas to lose. They need Bama to lose, and they need Florida State to lose. That's the only scenario I could see. Yeah, they need Florida State, Texas, and Bama to lose. If that happens, there's a chance.
Mr. Siciliano, and he agrees with you, I think, Paul, on this one. This is all about the money, so you're going to see teams about the money. And Steve is also saying, I know we'll get to that, Andy Martino with the Mets are signing Luis Severino, 1 year, $13 million. All right, Paul, sorry. It was just... No.
So listen, this is a great, thanks, Kurt. That was an excellent segment. We can, like I said, we can go on for another hour on this. Anyway, Carson, let's go back to you, and we'll do your segment now, Carson's Corner.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I got a couple quick hitters for you guys, Carson Corner section. I thought this would be a fun kind of topic, especially with all the weird fines that players are getting in the NFL. The no fun league is what they're calling the NFL now. So I thought I'd get your guys' opinion really quickly. Who do you think has the worst referees or umpires? It can be either the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, NHL. I know we don't really talk about hockey a lot, but there's been a couple controversy calls here and there as well. I'll throw my 2 cents in first. I think right now it's the NFL. I think you just look at the bias that's been happening recently and all these fines. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he got charged like $40,000 for an aggressive block. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do? The whole roughing the passer penalty. I think the league's becoming softer and softer. I think these refs are really starting to get on my nerves, and you see it all the time. At least once a week it happens where there's a controversial call. NBA is really close. I think, now you can't even lay a hand on a guy. It's a technical foul, where back in the 80s, if you elbowed a guy, it'd just be a common foul. So I think it's a tie right now between NFL and NBA, but right now I go NFL. Kurt, who do you think has the worst refs?
Mark is saying NBA, Steven's saying NFL and MLB. I'm going to go NFL just because I think that just like you said, Carson, the roughing the passer is ridiculous.
Mhm.
These people with the targeting and all that. But just look how many times, like in a game, whether it's, how many times you see 3rd and 28 and they call, okay, illegal contact, and now it's a first down.
Yeah.
Or I just think, like, even in a basketball game, like late maybe, or even in a baseball game, but with football, it's like, you'll see, a 70-yard touchdown run, holding, bring it back. They change the momentum of games just so much. So I'm going to say NFL.
Paul, who would you say?
Yeah, without a doubt in my mind, NFL. I mean, there's just too many times teams have an opportunity to do something. My biggest pet peeve is a call in the second quarter will not be the same call at the end of a game. I mean, the Giants, not to say that they've had a great year. Obviously they haven't, but the end of the Buffalo game, that should have been a penalty without a doubt in my mind on a defensive pass interference on Darren Waller. They should have an opportunity to have the ball at the half-yard line, and I can go on and on and on. I mean, there's been so many instances that it's just a horrible, horrible situation, and it seems like it's getting worse rather than better.
Ryan, who would you say?
So, a couple of great points were made regarding NFL, and again, there may be somebody who fits this that I just don't know about, but who in NFL or NBA, like in MLB, there are umpires who are so bad and so notoriously bad that announcers and commentators say, oh, that's another, Hernandez being Hernandez or Laz Diaz being Laz Diaz. I've not heard that personally in an NFL or an NBA game, where commentators and announcers who are, objectively just covering the game, or supposedly objectively just covering the game, literally know just as well as the fans do that these guys are going to blow up a major play or a major call at a critical moment during the game, because it's their reputation, because it's their track record. So that's my perspective on it, is until the NFL or an NBA has someone who's so ubiquitously known for that even people who are supposed to be, neutral in the game are getting involved in talking about it, I got to go MLB.
Real quick, I want to get a couple of comments. Kenny is saying, first off, Kenny said, great question, Carson. I think NHL is hardest to officiate. I'm going to go MLB by slimmest of margins because they are full-time employees. NFL is part-time and bad as well, but only that reason I go MLB. Jody's saying NFL, but MLB is a close second. Keith is saying, our good friend Keith Brugman, Denver Bronco Roundup. Hey, it's the K&K Sports Show. Kenny saying, bingo, Ryan. I agree. Joey Clams, whenever we get a text, Carson, I got to read it, or somebody be knocking on my door. NFL, they make bad calls and don't understand the game, and they need younger refs. They're old. And then he said they take the flow out of the game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I agree with all of you guys. I think it goes every each way. I mean, all sports, it happens. The refs aren't perfect, but a lot of the times it feels like there's some bias going on. But that's a great point that Ryan made up. There hasn't really been a single individual in the NFL or NBA in a while where it's like directly at him. So good thoughts on that, guys. We got one more here. I'll give you guys a quick hitter. Week 12 just wrapped up, moving into week 13. Give me your surprise team in the NFL from week 12 and your disappointing team. Probably disappointing for me. I'll say it right now, the Detroit Lions. This game should have been a blowout. I mean, I think we were a 9.5-point favorite in this game, and we just completely fell apart. So Lions, so much of that 1 seed, I think it's kind of out the door now. We'll still try to get the division, but I'm deeply disappointed. It's 7 losses in a row now on Thanksgiving. So Lions disappointing. Surprise team. I'm going to go, man, Surprise. I got to go with Kurt's Broncos. Listen, they're five wins in a row. This team was kind of dead out of the water. When their defense was giving up 70 points a game to the Dolphins, they did a really nice turnaround. Sean Payton and Russell Wilson seem to be back on their groove. I'm going to go with your Broncos, Kurt, as the surprise team this week. Ryan, give me your two teams.
I'm sorry, Carson. Disappointing. I also got to go with the Lions. I just never saw that going the way that it did. I'm going to be probably a little bit skewed here with the surprise team in a positive way, but the way in which Philadelphia won that game, not that I'm surprised necessarily they won, but the way in which they won in the kick of Jake Elliott into the wind, 60 yards, just with everything going on. So, I'm not they might not be the most surprising that they won, but how they won is why I'm putting them as my surprise this week.
Paul.
I hate to pile on Carson, but but obviously that was a very disappointing game by the Lions. I almost was going to say it was also a surprise, but I'll veer just to be different. The Vikings on Monday night, Josh Dobbs, who was Mr. Miracle coming in there, and all of a sudden he became the Daniel Jones of Monday night. Can't win a game on prime time and throwing 4 interceptions. So I'll for argument's sake, we'll say the Vikings losing to the Bears on Monday night.
Nice. And Kurt, give me your two teams.
Kenny's going Lions disappointment, and then he's saying Bear surprise. And I love you, Carson, but I'm going to jump on you too. You know what? If you asked me, give me one lock, like I would probably say the Lions, not only because they're just better than Green Bay, but that whole 7 years in a row, Thanksgiving, big game. So a little disappointing there. And I'm with Kenny, man. You know what? The Bears, and I know it was an ugly game, but I thought this coach is gone, this coach is done, but you know what? Listen, he's got them playing. He's got them playing 2 games in a row, right? They played the Lions tough on the road. Now they played, they beat Minnesota on the road in almost a must-win for Minnesota. So I'm gonna go with them. A couple other comments. Kenny saying, I hate to say it, but minus Jason Tucker, Elliott is the best and most clutch kicker in the NFL. And Paul, for you, from Jody, is Jordan Love the real deal?
I'll tell you, he's played a lot better than I thought anybody probably thought he would, and he's come up with some very big games, and I think he's been a pleasant surprise overall. And I think you can say yes, he's the real deal, really.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Murphy is going at Carson. NFL needs to stop putting Lions on Thanksgiving. I hope he's joking about that.
Cool. But yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. Good job on the Carson's Corner topic.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
Yep. Thanks, Carson. Speaking of coaches getting fired and losing jobs, so let's go to my next segment, which is coaches on the hot seat, so to speak, and particularly one. Once again, David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, unceremoniously has fired a coach in midseason. Frank Reich got terminated after 11 games, and in his first season as the head coach. According to Adam Schefter, there's going to be maybe up to 10 coaches losing their jobs, and as we all know, it's a bottom line win now industry in the NFL. So I guess my question to you guys is, should Frank Reich have been terminated after only 11 games in his first season? I'll start with Scoops.
No, I don't think so. I think that he's got too good of a track record for that. But also, why are we, we're talking so much about Tepper, we're talking so much about Young, why is Scott Fitterer's name not coming up in any of this? Like, he's the one who's putting these rosters together or not. He's the one who, apparently made the final selection to draft Bryce Young, allegedly. I don't know that for conclusive. I don't understand why his feet aren't being held a little more to the fire. And I'm curious if that happens now that, he doesn't have a scapegoat down there in Frank Reich, because you committed come hell or high water to Bryce Young. You just gave up all that for him. you're not moving off of him in a year from now unless you're hiring Kurt to run your organization.
That's
so
it.
We'll talk about that in a second.
yeah,
Okay.
that's my thing is I don't think so, and I think that Fitterer should have been more under the microscope.
Okay. Carson.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I think Frank Reich was just kind of the scapegoat of this whole catastrophe. You take a look at, Dan Campbell. He went 3-13 his first year as a Lions coach, and everybody wanted him gone, and he's the front runner for Coach of the Year right now. So it all starts with the GM and the ownership. And man, if I'm a Panthers fan, I am disgusted. And the crazy thing is even if you get the worst record in the NFL this year, you don't even have your number one pick. You gave it to the Bears, so. The GM, like Ryan said, Fitterer, that was just kind of a weak move and a scapegoat move on his part.
Yep. Kurt.
A couple comments, and Eddie's just saying that. Why didn't the GM get fired? He hired all those coaches, and then he's saying no. He got Rivers, Wentz, and Luck.
He also had to deal with Luck retiring right before the season, though.
Yeah.
Carson to play well. It was his comment. And Carson, real quick, Jody's asking, Carson, are you worried about the Broncos?
It's going to be a good game. I can tell you that. I think 3 weeks ago, I would say Lions probably destroy the Broncos, but not anymore. I think it's going to be a pretty evenly well spread.
Kenny's saying, sure, he should be fired. Is this me commenting? He's saying, sure, he should be fired. Bryce Young is the rookie quarterback that is supposed to turn the team around. CJ Stroud is doing it with no talent around him. Tank Dell is his number one receiver. There is a reason the Colts and now Panthers fired him. I'm with him. I'm sorry. Number one pick, and again, we can go into this, is why you don't, draft quarterbacks, just draft the quarterback. Once you draft, everything's taken care of it. Bryce Young looks horrible. And you know what? You can just tell it's not going to work. And I understand, with Dan Campbell, I'm going to say he had a different situation there, but when you're the quarterback guru and your quarterback looks like that, he looks terrible. He's ranked 29th or 30th. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's not going to work and he's going to go. Carson, agree or disagree with Joey Clams? Lions must win a playoff game or the coach got to go.
No, I think the expectation is division. I'd be disappointed if we didn't win the home playoff game, but I think division first. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry,
so he's safe. Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah. My feeling is I don't think he should have been fired. I think the guy has a proven track record. He played. He was on the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. I think the guy has certainly a legacy in the league. To be fired after 11 games. But you know what? Listen, the owner has fired Matt Rule in the middle of the year, Ron Rivera in the middle of the year. So that's his MO. And look, he paid a lot of money to buy the Panthers. I guess it's his choice. But that leads me into my next question. Would you continue?
Paul, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Jody's another one for Carson. Carson's on the hot seat tonight, man. Jody's saying, if the Lions don't win a playoff game, is Jared Goff gone?
Oh, he's he's got to earn his contract extension. That's for sure. So I wouldn't say gone, but to get paid, yes, he has to win a playoff game for sure.
Okay, Paul.
I know what Kurt.
I keep cutting you off, Nine. I just want to get
That's
our
all right.
comments in.
Yeah, no. That's more important. So I know what Kurt's answer is, but would you continue with Bryce Young as quarterback next year? I know what Kurt's going to say. So Kurt, let's go.
Listen, you're stuck. What are you going to do? You made that pick. You don't have a pick this year. So what a dumb trade you made. So, he has to. But me, listen, again, I'm always a believer of just say you have Drake May. You have Drake May rate great. If you would grade Drake May over Bryce Young. I know you don't have a pick, but if you have to get the better quarterback. So I don't know. Me personally, I don't think you should. I think if you can get a better quarterback in the league, do it. I just don't know how they're going to do without a number one draft pick. So I think they're stuck with him for next year.
Yeah. Carson?
I would stick with Bryce. Again, it's his first year in. There's a lot of pressure around the kid. And Adam Thielen is his best receiver, for God's sakes. All right, let's get the kid more weapons first before we scrutinize him. I mean, their O-line is okay. It's not great, but I think give him more weapons before we can kind of chop his head off.
Yeah, and Scoops.
Carson just took the words right out of my mouth. They're judging a guy who's got Adam Thielen and a bunch of dust bunnies around him. Like, come on, let's give the guy a bit of a fighting chance here.
But you know what? You had DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. Why just trade them for dumb draft picks?
Yeah,
that's on them.
Again,
that's on
in that trade.
Well,
yeah, that's on the GM, that's on Bryce.
My other question is this the way to run an organization? And obviously not, because it's a losing organization by exactly doing what you just said, Kurt, trading guys like DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey away. It's a stupid way to run and build a winning organization. Anyway, my last question regarding this is, who would you hire to replace him? Scoops?
To replace, excuse me.
As a new coach.
Yeah, to replace Frank Reich. People are probably going to say Harbaugh. I'm not. I would go and look at, excuse me, and I know we've been talking about it for a while, or he's been talked about for a while. Go and see what's going on in Washington with Eric Bieniemy. I know that he's been passed over for jobs before, but that offense has played better this year than a lot of people believe that it would, and I think that's partially attributable to him. You need an offensive coach in there, and I wouldn't go after a Jim Harbaugh type personally.
Okay. Let me throw my 2 cents in right now. You know who I would go? A former Panther, still lives in Carolina.
Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen, exactly.
That was going to be my second name.
Yeah, I mean, he would be, I think, a logical choice, and the fact that he's going to be replaced by Tom Brady next year as the lead analyst on Fox, but that's beside the point. But he might.
Sorry,
Carson.
Yeah, Greg Olsen, another Panthers legend, Steve Smith Sr. I could be an interesting hire as well. I don't know if he has any desire to coach. Kills me to say it, but Ben Johnson's from Carolina, and there's going to be a lot of head coaching opportunities, and I think, unfortunately, he's going to be gone. Probably the number one most sought-after head coaching candidate. So Ben Johnson could possibly go back home and get a head coaching job with the Panthers.
Yeah. Okay. And Kurt?
Couple comments. Eddie said, stop reading my comments, because he did say Greg Olsen said he would be a coach. Kenny is saying no, he's a bust. He said he's a bust, too small. Again, hats off to CJ Stroud doing it with Tank Dell and Nico Collins. And Kenny's saying Carson's OC is the type of coach they need. Obviously, I think that's the obvious name. I really like what Scoop said with Bieniemy, because listen, he does have the background with the offense and stuff like that, but when you look at a team, and I'm going to, just throw this back to the Broncos, is when the Broncos went first year head coach, it just became a circus over there. And I kind of feel that's what it's like here. And I know Frank Wright had a job, but, do they need an adult in the room? Do they need, I'm not saying him, but a guy like a John Fox, where he's just going to, stabilize them and, you're just going to throw everything. What's his name? Ben Johnson, Carson? Yeah. Are you just going to throw everything at him and, learn on the job, learn on this? So, I don't know. I like the Bieniemy. I guess I would have to say Johnson, but I like the Bieniemy one. I really do. I mean, listen, he has his, I don't know. It's a tough one, because they got mega problems, but one of their problems is him too. So you have to develop him. Get a system. You have to get him in a system, but you got problems all over the place there.
Yeah. The other thing is knowing that this owner is volatile. I know a lot of people, they'll say, hey, I want to, there's only 32 NFL head coach jobs, so people will jump at it.
You know what? I agree with Clams. I just got the text for Clams. I agree with him. Dan Quinn. Because you know what? Dan Quinn is going to do what John Fox did. He's going to line up, he's going to run the ball, and he's going to play defense, and he's going to take the ball out of Bryce Young's hands. So I like that. I'm with him. I'm going to say Quinn.
Kenny just dropped something. I really like this. He's talking about Brian Flores, who's now, I think,
DC in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Good responses. All right, guys. That's my segment, and good job.
Nice ball.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Ryan, a quarterback question that we seem to know in New York.
Yeah. So, so as you got, in case you guys, hadn't seen, actually just today, the Jets announced that the 21-day window for Aaron Rodgers to return is now open. So he'll be returning. I think the target was somewhere around week 16 is what I was reading. So just a couple questions related to both the specific situation and in general. So first of all, excuse me. First of all, would you, if you're out of contention, would you still be playing Aaron Rodgers, or are you going to say just sit him? We'll run with either Zach Wilson or the other guy that they have, Kurt. How would you handle it?
This is tough because I read a report today that said Aaron Rodgers is basically the only thing that would otherwise, like I guess Woody Johnson, the whole staff would get blown out, and that Aaron Rodgers is their only hope. So if you're that staff, I guess you're going to beg him to play, right? I mean, you got to do something because Nathaniel Hackett's been an absolute joke again, right? So, the head coach does nothing, right? I mean, they're a poor staff. So, I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't. But in the situation that they're in, I mean, remember, his best friend is Nathaniel Hackett. And, I mean, how can you bring this staff back next year? I think they're going to force him to play. I wouldn't, but I think they're going to.
Okay. Next, Paul, same question.
There is no way I would play this guy. He's going to be 40 years old in a couple of days. The idea that he's been great in rehab and coming back and wants to play, he's probably one of the most competitive sports athletes in history. But there's a point and a time where you have to just say, listen, we know you want to play. We're at a point. I think they're 15th in the AFC. All right, so they're one from the bottom of the conference. I will say this: the rest of their schedule, they play the Falcons, Texans, Dolphins, Commanders, Browns, and Patriots. So in those last 6 games, they have an opportunity actually to win 4 or 5 of those games. But that being said, unless he is 100%, there's no way I would play this guy. It would be almost like the idea of the Mets having Edwin Diaz pitching at the end of September when he was rehabbing, even though he was practicing and he was pitching. I wouldn't play him the same way that the Mets didn't with Diaz. Bring him back next year.
I didn't even think about that connection. That's interesting.
Yeah, good.
Corson.
Yeah, similar answers to what you guys were saying. I think it depends on what Rodgers wants. Like Paul said, he's 40 years old. He definitely didn't want to end his career that way, where he literally tears his Achilles the first 30 seconds into the season. So is this kind of a let's just give it one last bang and give the fans one last hurrah, even if we're in playoff contention or not, to kind of send Rodgers out in his merry way and then he retires? Or is he actually serious about them trying to get a final wild card spot? But like Paul said, they'd have to win the majority of their next several games to even have a chance. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's kind of a, ratings business kind of person from Rodgers. And I think he's also kind of hinting at the fact like, hey, don't count me out. I'm still going to end my career playing, not ending it on, a season-ending injury.
Scoops, I want to get a couple comments in from our good friend Trevor, another part of the Denver Bronco Roundup at Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern. I don't like Bieniemy. He hasn't gotten a head coaching job for a reason. Very good point. Dan Quinn probably would prefer the Chargers. There has been talk of pairing Quinn along with Kellen Moore in LA. Kenny saying on this subject, I think the Jets would have to go 2-1 the next 3 games or just let them rest. Eddie's saying no reason for Rodgers to play. Draft a quarterback to sit behind them for a year or 2. Jody's asking, does he have Wolverine blood? Trevor's coming back. The Jets would basically have to win out to even have a chance to make the playoffs. There is no reason to play Rodgers. Salah is likely safe. Get a higher draft pick and look forward to next season. Kenny's asking, Kurt, you as a Bronco fan, how much scoreboard watching are you doing the next couple weeks? A lot of scoreboard watching. Tons of scoreboard watching. Mr. Clams has chimed in on this. Clams has said, Salah has no clue how to coach, and please stop talking about the Jets. It's a waste of time. Mr. Joey Clams.
Oh,
straight
man.
from Clams's mouth.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll chime in real quick. I think that Salah's job would be, going back to what Kurt said, I think that he would be playing for Salah's job and those guys' job if it weren't for the circumstances of how this happened. Because obviously they built this entire team. They built, we can argue about how good of a job it was done, but they went into the season believing they would have Aaron Rodgers, and then they were forced back to Zach Wilson within a half an hour. So I think that Salah and the guys are safe going into this offseason, which is why I don't think that they should play him. But I don't think they should play him regardless if they're out of contention. But I don't think there's going to be that same level of pressure because of the circumstances surrounding how the season went. Going my next question here. So unfortunately, sorry, Clams, we are sticking with the Jets. What is one move, if you were in control of the Jets, whether it's free agent, draft, or trade, you'd make to support Aaron Rodgers this offseason? Because he's got one more year going into next year. Kurt.
Tough, because I want to say Devontae Adams, but look, you got an older quarterback, you got to protect them. So,
Right.
and I don't believe in the whole, okay, I want to draft the third-ranked tackle, and you got to go get a vet. I don't care how you do it. Even if you got to like sacrifice draft picks to go get, I'm not saying Trent Williams, but you got to scout around the NFL. And if you can get yourself one or two new start, you got to protect this guy. I mean, he's 40 years old. He's not going to be mobile. And, without an offensive line, you're not going anywhere. So I'm going to say enough. I don't have an exact guy for you, Scoops, but I'm going to say offensive line, number one.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as the Giants' offensive line has been, the Jets' offensive line might be even worse. They're playing third and fourth stringers basically the last few weeks. And if Aaron Rodgers is coming back, which I think next year his intention is, they've got to get a line to protect this guy, or else he's going to get killed. So without a doubt, I agree with Kurt.
Kenny's saying you try and go get Brock Bowers in the draft or trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. Go get OL in free agency is what he's saying.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's free agency, I'm not saying particularly the draft, but a combination of all of the above to get a line in front of him.
Guys, Clam sounds like me. Fire the whole staff, get new GM. Joe Douglas did bad job with the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
And Corson.
Yeah, same with you guys. Short and sweet. Get his buddy Devontae Adams. I like what Kenny's saying. Trade up for Marvin, or get a vet like Kurt was saying on the O-line.
Yeah. Again, real quick, I would go, if I'm going to go free agency, I'll go with my boy from Bama who's in Cincinnati right now. Jonah Williams is somebody they could look at as an offensive tackle. Now, I think I know how some of this is going to go, but is Salah going into next year?
Brian, how many more questions? Because we're running, it's like 8:54 right now.
It's the last one.
So, okay.
Is Salah the right coach? And if so, does he need to change his offensive coaching personnel? And the part two of that is, how much say would you give Aaron Rodgers with that? Kurt.
Listen, I've said this for 6 weeks. People laughed at me, but now they're not laughing. I don't think Salah's the right coach. And I truly believe someone's a scapegoat. He's going to get fired. And Aaron Rodgers is going to put Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach, because that's what Aaron Rodgers wants. Aaron Rodgers basically has the Jets by the you-know-what, because if he just turns around and says, if you don't keep Hackett, I'm done, the Jets are screwed for years and years and years. They're too invested in him. No. And Nathaniel Hackett's going to be back. So whether it's Salah and Hackett or Hackett as the head coach, Hackett will be back unless Rodgers ain't coming back.
Can't say I disagree with any of that. Paul.
I'm going to slightly disagree. I know Hackett's going to be back because that's Rodgers' guy. So he's definitely going to be back. I think Salah's going to be back too. I think Woody Johnson is going to take a pass. And Joe Douglas brought him in. If Salah goes, then Joe Douglas should go. And I don't think Joe Douglas is going anywhere. So I think they both will be back. But he's going to have the hottest of seats going into next year, especially if Rodgers comes back and he's healthy with Hackett there. If they get off to a bad start, I think they'll bring up David Tepper and can him in midseason.
Also, good point. Carson.
Yeah, same with you guys. I don't think we're giving Robert Saleh enough time. Again, he did lose his best player. So I think he's safe for another year, and we'll see what happens with Rodgers moving forward. I think it does play a factor, but again, when you have arguably the two worst starting quarterbacks in the entire NFL on your team, that doesn't help your case either. So I think Saleh's fine.
Scoops, real quick. Kenny saying, I actually see Saleh getting fired before the season ends. Hackett interim gets hired next year. Kurt nailed it. And Clams is saying, hold on. Owner can't let Aaron Rodgers make the calls. It's a clown show.
Yeah. Again, Kurt pretty much said what I was going to say. You already made the points about. I think that Saleh has a little bit more leeway than he would have, just based on the scenario he was put in. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that it makes too much sense for Hackett to take a more heavier role next year, whether or not that involves Saleh coming back. And that was the end of my questions, y'all.
Thank you, Scoop.
Great. Thank you, Scoop. Kurt, I know it's like 8:57. Do we have time to do Kenny's 3? We'll do rapid fire.
Yeah, let's do rapid fire, and then we'll do final.
Okay.
Thought.
All right. 3 rapid fire questions. It was Kenny's questions.
Carson, do you stay, Carson? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay.
Bang it out.
First question. James Madison went 11-1 this year. They moved up from Division 1 AA to 1A. They were told to come into the new conference, they would have to wait 2 years before they would be bowl eligible. Well, there's not enough teams to be bowl eligible. So guess what? The NCAA made an exception, and now they are ready to play a bowl. My question is, should this rule waiting for 2 years be changed? Do you agree or disagree? Only because they went from a lower conference to a better conference, and now they have to wait for 2 years to be eligible for a bowl. Rapid fire. Carson?
No, I think if they're good enough, let them get in the bowl game. I don't see a problem with it.
Okay. Scoops?
Yeah, I agree. It's if it's good competition level, then I'm all for it. Probably be better than half the games we see already.
Kurt?
Yeah, I'm with it. Like you're saying, you're not going down, you're going up. So you're going up in competition. I'm with Carson and Scoops.
Yeah, I'll sweep the board. I agree with you guys. Second question, the transfer portal. A lot of players already before the bowl season started have or are in the process of going into the transfer portal. Question is, should they have to wait until after the bowl season to elect to go into the transfer portal? Kurt? I'm
going to say no, because then you're just going to get to the fact of, if I know I'm transferring, I'm not going to play if I'm in Kentucky and I know I'm going to the portal, why am I going to practice and play for Kentucky when I know I'm leaving? So they're not going to play. So what's the point? Just start it up and get it done.
Carson?
Yeah, I'm with Kurt. If you enter your name, you're gone regardless of what time it is.
Okay, and Scoops?
I did not agree with Kurt, but after what he just said, I'm on board with what he said.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so many players are not even playing in bowl games anymore, regardless of whether they're going into the portal. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference. And the last rapid fire question is, 2 coaches. Jonathan Smith is going from Oregon State to Carson's Michigan State Spartans, and Mike Elka, coach from Duke, is going to Texas A&M to the Aggies. My question is, should they have to wait also after the bowl season to announce their changes and leaving, or should they be able to announce right in the middle if there's a bowl that's still being played to transfer? Kurt?
Again, I see like the professionalism, and I understand like where he's coming from on that, but not for nothing. If I'm Duke, do I really want him coaching my team? I mean, he's leaving. He's not going to be here. Like, no, Go, you do your thing. Let's get our thing going with someone who might be on staff. And because he's not going to have any interest in doing that. So honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's better off that he goes, you get your, he does his thing, you get, your thing. Because why are you going to have a coach for 6 weeks or whatever? That's not going to be there. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. Scoops.
Man, I wish this wasn't rapid fire. But so going back real quick, a couple of years ago, Seton Hall had this issue with our head coach that went to Maryland, I think it was. And yeah, no, I think it's different for a coach than players because, again, you're leading the organization. You've got, hand in recruiting and all this stuff. I think that at least in terms of the publicity factor or in terms of, frankly, I don't think that there should be the ability to negotiate this stuff while games are still going on. I know that'll never happen, but I don't like the fact that a coach can be getting ready to leave while he's still in a playoff run.
Okay. And Carson?
Yeah, really quick. I think it depends on the situation of the coach. Jonathan Smith, the Pac-12 is collapsing, so I don't have a problem with him leaving. Same with Mike Elcott. Duke is still in the ACC. It's kind of like, all right, we recruited this whole team, and now I'm going to flip you guys off. Bye-bye. See you later. Have fun in your bowl game. I think the bowl game also has a big factor. If it's a big New Year's Six bowl game, I think they should stay. If it's a regular casual bowl game, I don't see a problem with them leaving.
Carson, I got a question.
Okay.
Do you think, real quick, Paul, do you think in that situation, just like you said, whether it's a bigger bowl, but especially if it's a bigger bowl, because I've seen this sometimes happen, do you think like a head coach should ask, like if, whether I'm asking you as a player or as an administration, do you guys want me to stay? I'm going to A&M, but do you want me to stay through a bowl?
I think they should let them know ahead of time for sure, like a week's notice, like, hey, guys, I'm on the phone with Michigan State. We had a great year at Oregon State, but I'm going to leave, so goodbye. I think they should definitely give them a warning for sure, not just pack their bags and go.
Okay. My feeling is I think coaches can get hired to be fired. They have every right. Unless they have a contract that's ironclad, let them go. Let them go. Brian Kelly did it. But I will say this. If you want to take it to the next level, professional, I know a certain coach on the Philadelphia Eagles was interviewing during a certain, right, Scoops.
I was trying not to go there.
But that's to go to that next level. So, hey, it's not a good look, especially when that kind of situation happens. So anyway,
couple comments, Paul. Jody,
Yeah.
I think to get your NIL money, you have to play in the bowl game. Kenny saying coaches should negotiate until season. I guess he meant not negotiating season's over. Kirby Smart can get up and leave Georgia if someone offers them a ton of money. Negotiate after season. Steve is saying sources also say Mets in agreement with Joey Wendell on a contract pending physical. Kenny saying, Paul, how did you feel about Brian Kelly leaving?
Oh, I hated it when he did that. It was, he basically said adios. I mean, he was I know it's a family show, but let's put it this way. He was BSing a highly recruit in their house, saying he was going to be there, and the next day he went back and accepted the job at LSU. So you talk about a fraud. You talk about someone who wasn't even telling the truth to a high recruit for Notre Dame. I mean, you can't get any lower than that.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to closing.
All right, closing thoughts. First and foremost, you guys, awesome show tonight. Carson, awesome on the Carson corner. Scoops, obviously awesome with your Aaron Rodgers. And Paul and Kenny, want to give both you guys a shout out for a great agenda tonight. You always do a great job with that. And thank you for everybody watching. Thank you for all the comments. And let's go, baby. 5 in a row, 6-5. This team could play with anyone. By the way, I'm doing a Broncos show in an hour, guys. So I haven't done it. I didn't do it last week, so I'm going to be fired up tonight. But great show tonight. Carson, final thoughts.
Yeah, great show as always, guys. Love talking sports with you all. Have a good rest of your Wednesday, and looking forward to Wits and Wagers tomorrow.
A lot of action tomorrow, Carson. A lot of action. Real quick from Clams, 411 Scoops has action for Sunday. Philly +3. So he's saying he likes your Philly +3, I think.
Yeah,
go ahead, Scoop, final thought.
we've been in conversations about that. But so is it on me now?
Yeah, yep. Sorry,
All right,
your final thoughts.
Guys. All right. Last year, all I heard all season was Philly didn't play nobody. Philly didn't play nobody. We've had a 6-week gauntlet. Everyone said we're going to see what Philly's made of in the 6 weeks that we're in right now. We're 3-0 in this season, this part of the season, and teams only getting better each week. Hurts is only getting better each week. And I'll tell you, I'll leave you all with this: going in the NFC, if it runs through Philadelphia, they don't want Philly.
And Mr. Rosen, great job today. Doing the what's the word? If Kenny called you something tonight, I can't even think of it.
The hostess with the mostest.
Yeah, the host, the master ceremonies.
MC.
Wait a minute. This is breaking news. Carson, you're going to like this. He bet it. I put it in for him. So, Scoops, you have an official bet in already, Scoops?
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
There it goes. He's going to go from law school to there goes the law school money.
From law school of FanDuel.
I like that.
Kenny's saying, great show, fellas. Kenny's also saying, Eagles beat 49ers. I will come on air next week and say they are representing the Super Bowl. Eddie Murphy saying, Knicks are one step closer to hanging a banner. You going to the parade, Kurt? LOL. Listen, baby steps with that team. If they lose, the fraud slayer comes out next week. Paul, final thoughts.
Great show, guys. Always a pleasure. Fun topics this week. We missed you, Kenny. We'll see you next week. And hey, 2 in a row. We may not be 5 in a row like some of you guys, but hey, a lost season has turned into a little friendly Jersey juice. Little friendly Jersey juice. Oh, and tomorrow, Kenny and I will have our Let's Talk New York Giants football at 8:00 on the same podcast network.
That reminds me. Just 5 seconds. What's the Scoop is back on Saturday.
All right,
nice.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for a great show. Awesome. Again, hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving, and we move officially into the Christmas season, I believe. Correct. So,
Holly Jolly.
That's it. Holly Jolly's back. Holly Jolly's back. Have a good night, guys.